لساني يفقه قولي. Yesterday we discussed a little bit about the author and how firm he stood when it came to the sunnah, and how valuable the sunnah was in his life, and how when he compiled this book, then after years of living amongst various different Muslims and studying the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he selected a few etiquettes and manners that he noticed many individuals were lacking, and he compiled it into a book. You'll find it's titled Islamic Manners, but in reality the actual name of the book is Min Adab al-Islam. In other words, a few Islamic manners. So we'll be going over a few Islamic manners. Now, before going over the book, perhaps it may come to someone's mind that, oh, we're just going over manners. I mean, what place does etiquette hold in Islam? What's so special about adab and manners when we can worry about so many other more important things? We find that adab and etiquette is such an important thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself took it upon himself to teach the Anbiya alayhimus salam. And we see this in the Quran itself when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addressed Musa alayhi salam near Mount Tur, and he told him, فَخْلَعْنَ عَلَيْكَ إِنَّكَ بِالْوَادِ الْمُقَدَّسِ طُوَى. Remove your shoes. So this action of removing the shoes is also from the etiquette that a person should observe. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him, you are near a very sacred valley, therefore remove your shoes. This is from the proper etiquette. And you'll find certain ulama, they mention, الدين هو الأدب كله. Certain ulama have mentioned that our entire deen is based on various different etiquettes. So it's so important that you'll have individuals such as Ruwaym rahimahullah, he mentioned, he said, من ترك الأدب عوقب بحرمان السنن ومن ترك السنن عوقب بحرمان الفرض ومن ترك بالفرائض ومن ترك الفرائض عوقب بحرمان المعرفة. He mentioned that that person who leaves out etiquette, then eventually, as a result, he is going to be deprived of acting on various different sunnats of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like very emphasized sunnats. And when a person begins leaving out emphasized sunnats of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then as a result, he will eventually be deprived upon acting on certain obligations in his deen. And when a person then leaves out acting upon various different obligations in his deen, then he is truly deprived of any type of ma'rifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is when you find a person asking constantly, what's the purpose of praying? There's no benefit in it. They don't feel connected at all whatsoever, and they rather start rejecting it. And this is also very logical too, because shaitan, any enemy that you have, he's going to attack the outermost defenses. Any enemy that you have, he's going to attack the outermost defenses. That's why the ulama, they emphasize when coming to performing salah, a person should not only perform his fara'id, the fajr, dhuhr, asr, maghrib, isha, but he should also perform the sunnah mu'akkadas. The 2 before fajr, the 4 before dhuhr, 2 after dhuhr, 2 after maghrib, and then 2 after isha. And they say they say not to stop there, but rather increase in nawafil as well. Perform those sunnahs which are also not as mu'akkad, but are also proven from the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like the 4 before Asr, 4 after Isha, so on and so forth. 2 extra after the 2 of Dhuhr. And on top of that, they say whenever a person can, add extra voluntary prayers. Why? Because these are your defenses against your greatest enemy. إِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ لِلْإِنسَانِ عَدُوٌّ مُبِينٌ. He is the greatest of enemies. And when any enemy attacks, he attacks the outermost wall. So if you're only performing your fara'id, then obviously shaitan is going to attack your fara'id. And as a result of that, you're going to be deprived of the ma'rifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're going to be deprived of any good, of all good. And if a person on top of his fara'id, he's performing his sunnats, then shaitan is going to say, he's not going to come and he's not going to tell you that, oh, you performed your fajr, dhuhr, asr, maghrib, isha yesterday, today you can just leave out a fajr. He's not going to attack that way. Especially if you're performing your sunnats, he's going to say, you perform the sunnats of fajr, you performed yesterday the sunnahs of Isha, the sunnah of Maghrib. Why don't you just leave out the 4 sunnah before Dhuhr? It's so hard to get up anyways. He's not going to attack you from the fara'id, he's going to attack you from the sunnah. But if a person is on top of performing his fara'id, plus he's performing the sunnah mu'akkadas, plus he's performing nawafil, then shaitan naturally is going to come and he's going to attack the outermost defense, which is your nawafil. And your sunnah is going to be saved and your fara'id are going to be saved. Similarly, when it comes to adopting adab and etiquette, perhaps it may not be as grave a thing if a person leaves out one of these etiquettes. But if a person understood the reality of the sunnah, then they would understand how grave it actually is. Because every single act, even if it's an etiquette, if it's the action of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it's full of so much nur and barakah which we cannot even imagine. This is why our mind should go back to the ayah, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu istajibu lillahi wa lirrasuli idha da'akum lima yuhyikum. Through these adab and these etiquettes, we as human beings will inshallah learn now how to be true human beings. It is through these etiquettes that we will find a change in our lives completely. And that is how important these are. Another statement, Abdullah ibn Mubarak rahimahullah, he mentions, he said, لو تركت سنة من السنن أو أدبا من آداب الإسلام لخشيت أن يسلبني الله جميع ما أعطاني. That if I were to leave out a single sunnah that I have learned, or leave out a single etiquette from the various etiquettes of Islam, then I fear as a punishment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would snatch away every single thing that He has granted me. So these etiquettes are very, very important. In this booklet, Shaykh Abdul Fattah Abu Ghudda rahimahullah, he mentioned a few pertinent but often neglected Islamic manners. The manners of Islam are many and are therefore impossible to be encompassed in a brief booklet. However, if the few that are mentioned in here are implemented, then one could inshallah endeavor to progress further, inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Discussing the very beginning, he starts the forward and he says, first he praises Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May the best of praise and glory be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord of the universe. May the choicest of peace and salutations be on His messenger, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, his family and his pious followers who follow his guidance and etiquette. O Allah, guide us to follow them in words and actions until we die. Ameen. This is a brief booklet concerning the manners of Islam in which I have gathered selected texts on this subject. The ahadith cited in this booklet are either sahih or hasan. In other words, all of the ahadith here are very reliable. The reason for me compiling this book is that I have seen many of my beloved brothers and sisters disregarding these etiquettes and misinterpreting them. In doing so, I hope to remind them of these manners. I do not claim to be superior or less in need of practicing these manners, but I only do so because of the duty of enjoining good and forbidding evil. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. And also in observance of the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَذَكِّرْ فَإِنَّ الذِّكْرَى تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, and remind because a reminder is beneficial to the believers. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us all to benefit from good reminders, and may He make this of benefit to me as well as the reader. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect and guide us in this life and the hereafter. Inshallah, we will stop here for today. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.